I would quite literally rather do laundry than buy these. Okay, we're talking about the Technics AZ60 today, an IEM that has pit itself against the very best in the business. The question is, does it really hold up? Let's start with the basics, right? Packaging. It comes in this package that claims to be environmentally friendly, and it is. By and large, it's plastic free, except for the bit that's wrapping the actual case. But it also comes with 17,000 manuals. I kid you not, more literature than my 10th standard history book. Also in the case is a bunch of ear tips, a wide variety ensuring a universal fit for anyone and everyone, and the buds in the case and the earphones and so on. Now, as far as design is concerned, the case is nothing to write home about. It's like they went to a Chinese OEM and just said, okay, we'll have that case, just put our name on the top. The earphones though is a little bit different. It's much nicer. I think it looks quite stylish, and it has nice big touch capacitive areas on the side which work really well. I like the look of the earphones. Now when it comes to build quality, I have no issues with the earphones, but the case lid is already showing signs of not being the best built lid in the world. So that's a little concerning, given that this is definitely a product that's aimed at the premium market. When it comes to fit and comfort, the Technics AZ60, well, the case doesn't fit very well in the pocket, but it's okay. The earphones, on the other hand, given that they come with so many different tips, they do fit really well. They're very comfortable, right up to the point where I try and run with them or even walk with them, because the occlusion effect is big with these guys. Even if you're just creeping along like a little ninja, the Technics AZ60 make it sound like you're an elephant trampling through the savannah. The occlusion effect is astonishing. When you go for a run, it gets even worse. Not only that, when you're running and you've got music playing, the music modulates as well, because as snug as this is, when I'm just sitting here, while I'm running, I notice that no matter what tip I use, it's not snug enough to prevent it from bouncing up and down just a little bit. And that's enough to A, listen to it bouncing up and down, B, add to the fact that you can hear your footsteps, and C, make the sound go like this. You know what I'm talking about? That happens. All those three things combined make this a really, really horrible running experience. Look, you can sit down and take calls with it all day. You can probably use it in the gym, but I wouldn't recommend it for running or walking with. But let's leave some of that mediocrity aside and let's talk about some of the more interesting things. The apps and features, for example. Now it comes with an app. On the home page, you can see what codec it's using. You can see the charge level of the earphones, but not the case. And it gives you 4 essential options. The first 2 options are to do with noise cancelling, ambient mode, and your EQ settings. And I'm going to save this for the sound quality section of this video. The next 2 are quite important because one of them allows you to find your earphones if you've lost them. The way it does this is, if you give it permissions, it'll save the last known geolocation of your earphones and it'll show it to you either on Google Maps or as an address. Then when you get closer, when you feel like you might be in the vicinity of your lost earphones, you can ask the app to actually send a little musical tone through the earphones. And this is quite useful. The 4th feature on the homepage of the app is also quite interesting. The feature is called Just My Voice Testing. And what this does is allow you to listen to your own voice as would be heard by the person on the other end of the call. So if you've got an important call to set up, then you might want to do this before the call, and it allows you to toggle its microphone noise cancelling on or off to see if it's working the best in that scenario or not. Oh wait, we're going over some rumbler strips. So this is an entire loop that is filled with these rumbler strips. And this is good because if you can hear it, this is what it sounds like walking or running with the Technics AZ60. Let me go a little faster. It's not a pleasant experience. It sounds actually exactly like this. You hear this now? Oh my god. This is oh, this is gonna be worth a subscribe, right? Come on now. Alright, we're at the other end. So, where were we? The features, right? Now, if you go a little further into the settings menu, there's a whole bunch of interesting options, right? The most interesting option, the most useful option is the ability to customize your touch controls. You can customize them to do whatever you want, and the interface is really good. Kudos to Technics for including that in there. There's also some other interesting stuff, like you can program your earphones to go to sleep or just switch off after a certain amount of disuse, 5, 10, 20 minutes, it's up to you. But the problem is, if you do that, then the Find My Earphone settings, at least the setting where the app sends a sound through your earphones to help you locate it, that won't work. So you'll have to pick your poison there. Another important option is multi-point connect. And what this does is basically give your earphones the ability to connect to 2 devices at the same time. That's the maximum. And it works just fine. I feel like this is a feature that more earphones should have. More earphones are getting it lately, and I'm glad the Technics have them. Having said that, you won't be able to use LDAC with multi-point, but this is quite common. LDAC does not support multi-point. A couple of other really interesting options are the ability to change the color of your earphones. Not the actual color of your actual earphones, but just the color of the display earphones on your app. Yeah, that's an option. It's like Technics didn't even have the faith in their own system to recognize that this serial number equals this color, and that's it. So they just gave you the option instead. There is one other option in the settings menu I'd like to talk about, and that is suppression of interruption and delays. This has to be one of the most confusing menus that I have ever seen in any app on any piece of tech. Basically what it is it gives you the option to choose between your latency, between what you're watching on your or listening to on your phone and the audio actually coming through on your earphones, and the interruption to sound, so connection quality. Higher latency equals good connection quality, lower equals bad. Personally, I leave it on automatic. There is a little bit of latency detectable, but this is not the deal breaker. Trust me, there's other things. There's also the option to change the level of microphone noise cancelling, and it can go from normal to strong. But what's puzzling is you have to go into the settings menu to change it, but to test it out, you have to go back to the home page menu. It's absurd that they have it in 2 different places, that you have to go back and forth every time. It's just another example of the fact that Technics hasn't quite thought things through. What is that? What is that? That car, Best Tune? Is that? Look at that. It's always so cool when you find like new cars that you've never heard of from China over here. There's a bunch of brands and they all look like they're pretty decent actually, and they're all cheaper than anything else on the market. I've always wondered what they are like. Now, it supports SBC, AAC and LDAC codecs, which is quite nice. Although on LDAC, I have to say it defaulted to 300 kbps, the lowest setting, which is equivalent to SBC. In fact, SBC is probably a little better. So I would suggest going to developer options and then picking the middle option of 600 odd kbps. The reason you go for the middle option is because the full strength LDAC is it's just a buggy experience on the Technics AZ60. Connection quality does suffer quite a bit. Another issue is if you're trying to quickly remove the earphones and pick up a phone call. It takes quite a bit of time to actually sync with your phone. Each individual earphone, if you take them out one at a time, will have this chime that goes through the ear. And then a couple of seconds later, it'll say Bluetooth connected. So if you do one ear at a time, that whole thing happens 2 times. One chime, second chime, Bluetooth connected, and then you can hear your audio. Or so I thought. But actually, while testing it, I found out that after the chime, about a second after the initial chime, is when the audio starts streaming through anyway. Problem is, you're now listening to your audio, and over that audio is an unnecessary voice prompt that tells you Bluetooth connected. So let's move on to sound quality. Okay, active noise cancellation. It's actually not too bad, but it's not class leading in any way. Noise cancelling works. It does very well in the lower frequencies. Some of the mids also get suppressed to some extent, but really not to the extent where it affects anything. Like if someone's talking to you, you'll still be able to hear them. So it's not a huge deal, but it's there, and I feel ANC is just enough to make a difference. Ambient sound modes also sound pretty good. It's definitely an amplification mode rather than transparency. But here's a quick tip. If you set ambient sound mode to about 30 to 40%, it sounds a lot more transparent and really quite natural. Now, when it comes to music, this is the part that made me actually get up and go for a drive to do this review. It's definitely a bass boosted IEM. but the bass isn't handled very well. Now because of LDAC, there's a decent amount of detail in the bass, but it's just not well controlled, and therefore the bass starts to feel a little bloated and it leaks out into the mids, and it's the same old story with a lot of IEMs without particularly good tuning. Apart from the bass though, the rest of the frequencies are so bland and boring that I'm going to talk about the Sony WF-1000. That's right, this IEM's sound quality is so lackluster and boring that I'm literally going to be talking about a completely different device. But there's a reason why. See, the Sony WF-1000 is a sub $100, sometimes sub $70 IEM that does nothing else, but it has good sound. Whether you're listening to hard rock, heavy metal, or you're listening to pop and EDM, it just sounds so good. And part of that is because the bass is better controlled. And somehow the timbre of the mids also sounds better. It doesn't have the same level of detail. I'll be the first one to admit that it doesn't have LDAC, and therefore it doesn't have that much data to work with. But even then, the WF-1000 with a little bit of tuning ends up sounding so much more fun and so much better, and to my ears much more balanced as well. If you already own the Technics AZ60, the one thing I would recommend is that you drop that 100 Hz scale on the EQ, and it ends up sounding a lot more controlled, a lot better overall. As for the mids, I prefer boosting them up a little bit, but that's up to you. Overall though, there's nothing more to say. It just exists. There's literally nothing else. Which brings me to battery life. Okay, the battery life is average. It is absolutely middle of the road. I will give credit to Technics though. In their myriad of manuals, they actually have a cool little table that I haven't seen with many other Bluetooth IEM models, and that is to give you the battery life with different scenarios. LDAC with ANC, LDAC without ANC, AAC with ANC, and so on. And they give you numbers for all those things, which is actually really useful for a prospective buyer. Basically, with AAC and active noise cancellation, it'll do about 7 hours, maybe a little less. And with LDAC and noise cancellation enabled, it does about 4.5 hours. In my testing, it does a little bit less than that, but that'll be subject to what volume levels you use and whatnot. Overall, I'd say, like everything else about these earbuds, this too is nothing to write home about. Look, the fact is, the Technics AZ60 does a whole lot of things, but I get the distinct impression that they've gone out to some kind of Chinese OEM manufacturer, and this might not be true, but it seems like they've just gone through a box ticking exercise. It should have ANC, should do a decent job. It should have LDAC because people are looking for LDAC, and so on and so forth. It doesn't end up doing any one thing particularly well. In fact, the sound quality and the features, all of them turned out to be so boring that I nearly fell asleep just trying to make this review, and I had to find something more interesting to do while I was doing the review, while I was talking to the camera. And today, that's quite literally dry cleaning. This was more interesting than the Technics AZ60. But that's okay, that's just from a reviewer's point of view. When does this become pertinent to you? Well, when I tell you that it costs $250. That is Sony XM4 money, Bose QC earbuds money. That is more than the Apple AirPods Pro cost on Amazon, and all those devices do at least one or two things significantly better than anything else on the market. Class leading, one might say. These simply don't. On the one hand, this is quite possibly one of the most boring devices I've had the pleasure of reviewing lately. But on the other hand, it is most definitely the most overpriced thing I have seen in quite a while. So there you have it, the Technics AZ60. I would quite literally rather do laundry than buy these. So I guess it's a good thing that I have a couple of other interesting things on order. Final Audio now has a Bluetooth wireless earbud. The AKG N400 is on order. It's in shipment actually. So hopefully those will be more interesting. They're already a heck of a lot cheaper. So I feel like they've already won some points with me right now. But if you want to see those, then maybe hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one. Till next time, stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste. And here's a little bonus microphone quality check. This is my voice coming through the Technics AZ60 directly into the Google Pixel 6. Oh, and a little bit of a bonus, another little issue I found out, a little cherry on top, was basically that sometimes every now and then one ear would just go off automatically. Like it would just lose connection and I would have only connection in one ear and have to repair the whole thing. I don't know if it's just my unit, but just something I thought I'd let you know. Just the gift that keeps giving. This is Cafe Sounds played pretty darn loud, and this is my voice coming through the Technics AZ60. What do you think? Peace.